Hello, everyone, and welcome to the League One Lowdown podcast. Just jumping in before the start of this episode, myself, Jamie Johnson, here with Seb Jones, just to tell you what is about to come, really, because it's something a little bit different. Not our usual review show, given it's the FA Cup this weekend. So we're bringing you something a bit different. We're talking to Tom FM, a football manager, YouTuber, well over 250,000 subscribers on YouTube, all about the game itself and little bits and pieces about League One and teams and players to keep an eye on, as well as some general chat about Lincoln, his team, of course. So we're going to jump in a couple of minutes. How have you been keeping, Seb, though, in this week?
Yeah, I've been very well, thank you. Obviously, Callum deputised in your absence at the weekend. So, I think we were glad. Although there was a lot of sort of things to chat about off the field. On the field, it was a pretty lots of 1-0s, lots of 1-1s in terms of Saturday results, at least. So, been keeping well. Pretty busy last week, but back into the swing of things, and all good. Yeah, how about yourself?
Yeah, same for me. A very busy week and an FA Cup game for me as well this weekend. I'm heading over to Gainsborough on the Sunday for their televised game. It's always nice to get to a different game, maybe on an FA Cup weekend with League One, taking that bit of a pause. But we'll be back next week with our normal scheduled programme, with our review show, myself and Seb. But for the time being, do enjoy this. The other side of the intro, it's going to be our chat with Tom FM about all things Football Manager 26, all things Lincoln, and all things League One. Hello then, Tom. Thanks for coming on the podcast. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on, guys.
No, it's fantastic. It's something different for us as well, talking about football, but Football Manager. Obviously, you know a lot about it. I guess if you want to do a bit of an intro for yourself, people who may not know who you are after been living on sort of rock recently, what do you get up to?
Yeah, my name's Tom FM on YouTube, and I make videos about Football Manager. So usually just going through different challenges and rebuilds and things like that, and putting some fun videos together. So yeah, it's good fun.
It's a busy time of year for you as well, obviously, with the new game out, FM26. It's been a long wait. It's been great, obviously, for you now that it's finally here.
Yeah, it's been a long old while since the previous game came out, FM24, and that was back end of 2023 for the start of the 23-24 season. So it's been a little while playing the same database, although you can update the database to have the teams in the right leagues, all the players never really changed kind of thing. So, for example, in that game, Cole Palmer was never rated, so he never got any good across the life cycle of FM24. So now in FM26, for example, he's had that big upgrade now, and suddenly you've got these new players to use, and it feels very fresh. And they've changed a lot about the game. The reason it was cancelled last year because they were changing virtually everything about the game engine, all the coding to it, how it plays and looks. So it's been a big change, and I'm getting used to it slowly, but it's been controversial for some people.
Yeah, I'll just jump. Sorry, I was just going to jump in there in terms of you mentioned a lot of change. What change are you most excited about in terms of FM26 coming out?
For me, it's definitely the tactical changes. Previously you played Football Manager and you were kind of set into like a one style approach kind of thing. So you'd line up your team in, say, a 4-2-3-1, for example, and then you've got the player roles. So maybe you've got an inside forward on one wing and then a traditional winger on the other wing, for example. And then you can set instructions to the players individually, like, you want your inside forward to get further forward, for example, or sit narrower. And then you've got your general team instructions for things like, sit in a low block, for example, that kind of stuff. But in FM26, they've changed everything. So you've now got an in-possession formation with in-possession roles and instructions, and then out of possession as well. So you can change things. And it's a bit more realistic, I think, actually, in this sense. I think a lot of managers will probably think in terms of their in-possession shape and out-possession shape and what different players should be doing in those different phases of the game. And so it's a big tactical change, which is going to take a lot of learning to get your head around it and try and create those great tactics that just work really well. And you can take your Crawleys to the Premier League, for example, kind of stuff. So that's the biggest change for me that I've been enjoying. Obviously, it looks massively different because they've changed the entire user interface. But for me, as someone playing the game, it's the tactics.
And it definitely is that bit more realistic, isn't it? Because There is, I mean, even down to our sort of level with League One, everyone's got an in possession, out possession. There's a lot of change of formation, a lot more fluidity. Of course, you're a Lincoln fan, you've got the shirt on. Lincoln are a very fluid team in that regard as well. I guess to push us on to Football Manager for a beginning, what sort of teams in the league? Are there some that stand out for you? Because you do a lot of stories, a lot of rebuilds in terms of your Football Manager content. Are there any teams in the league that people who play in the game should be looking out for to do a save on?
Yeah, I think if you're trying to learn the ropes of the game a little more, if you want to start in League One, you'd be looking to start with one of the bigger or better clubs, for example, teams that are looking for promotion. Because if you start with a team that's not particularly good, a team that's going to be down the bottom end of the table, then if you're losing games, it's not necessarily because you're not very good at the game. It's just because the team that you've been given isn't particularly good because they're not that good for the game. So if you start with a Cardiff, for example, who are expected to be up there, that will be reflected in Football Manager. If you're losing games a lot with Cardiff, you can realise, okay, there is something fundamentally wrong with my tactics here, for example, and things like that. So if you're learning the game, I'd certainly say start with bigger clubs in whatever league you want to go for, because you get a better understanding of what does and doesn't work, because fundamentally you should be winning.
Yeah, I guess you mentioned one of the League One clubs there, Cardiff. Do you have sort of a particular, either yourself or one that you recommend in terms of league to start in with? Do you recommend doing the whole National League to Premier League sort of route, or do you recommend sort of starting somewhere in the middle for perhaps beginners that might have never played before?
I reckon as a beginner, you either want to start as a big club, so maybe you would start as like Liverpool or Man City kind of thing, because like I say, you should be winning, you understand how bits of the game work, and you enjoy. People have enjoyment out of winning games. So if you're going to win more, then that's all right. I would also say start with the club that you support, because you know your own players, you know how good they are, you know where they should be playing, what kind of roles they do. All your information from the real life just filters into it quite nicely. And they do a very good job of replicating how good players are. Every club, at least in England, for example, every club in the Football League and probably National League as well now, I'd imagine, has a club researcher, which is usually a very dedicated fan who's, season ticket holder kind of thing, goes to all the games, and they will analyse all these players all the time to make sure the database is up to date. So if the season starts, for example, and let's say for Lincoln City's sake, it's Freddie Draper, say he scored, 10 goals in his first 20 games, for example, by Christmas for the winter update, they would be updating that, saying, okay, he's had a big progression this first half of the season. We should probably update him to be a better finisher, more composure, maybe better strength, for example, that kind of stuff. So, I think it's better to start with the team that you support. And you have more fun doing it that way as well, I feel. You get behind your own team and realise you're doing it better than your own team's manager. You can then start sitting in the stands and think, oh, come on, lad, you should be doing this instead. So I always recommend that as well.
Trying to wish that into existence with Freddie Draper, are you? With
a little bit. A little bit. I want him to have that sort of Joe Makama rise this season, and then maybe we sell him on for £2 million this summer instead of the 1.5 or so we got for Joven.
You had for Cardiff then, there's a lot of those teams in this league, those formula Premier League sides. There's a lot of those like fallen giants, isn't there, in a way that you could build your way back up?
Oh, yeah, massively. It's a really interesting league. I mean, obviously, his team has been here for a little while, like a Bolton, for example. They've been there for a little while. Maybe Wigan, Huddersfield have been stuck there for a little bit. And fundamentally, they have got good, solid teams with, quite decent depth in there. So they should be doing quite well. I know, realistically, Stevenage are doing very well this season. But in Football Manager, they are maybe not quite so good. In fact, in one of the stays I'm doing, they are rock bottom of the table right now. So, it doesn't show it's always realistic. But actually, that's a good challenge. Sometimes you want to challenge yourself. Obviously, Stevenage and Game maybe don't have the greatest of teams. Can you replicate what they've done in reality and try and get them up there?
You mentioned challenges in terms of Stevenage. What's your favourite challenge to take on, in terms of the videos that you do? And I guess, what is your personal favourite that you've undertaken or yet to undertake, maybe perhaps?
Yeah, I think the personal favourite over the last, over the life cycle FM24, let's say, is the Pentagon Challenge. So that is starting as an unemployed manager with no coaching badges, and you've got to try and just get your first job anywhere in the world kind of thing. And the idea is you build up through a few teams, and then you've got to win the Champions League or the equivalent of the Champions League in Europe, North America, South America, Asia, and Africa. And then once you've done all of that, you've completed the Pentagon Challenge. So that's a really difficult one to do. It takes a long time. But that was, a very rewarding doing that one. And made some good videos, that one. So that was good fun. But I also enjoy like the more trivial kind of challenges as well. Like there's one that I'm working on at the moment, actually. And on the grounds that there's these new in possession, out possession formations. I'm going to be trying to win the league without playing a single attacking player kind of thing. So everyone's got to be like midfield deeper kind of thing. And can we make that work? Can we stay solid defensively, which we should be able to by keeping, 10 players, kind of behind the halfway line. But when we go forward, how do we use these player roles and tactical instructions to try and get the team to go on to win the game kind of thing? So that's always quite a good fun one to do as well. And it's just trying to think a little bit outside the box in those kind of things and try and do something a little different.
There's so many different ways you can go with the game. I know Callum, one of our co-hosts, plays a lot of Football Manager, and it's something that it seems to be coming into football talk a lot as well. I mean, I think maybe like 5-6 years ago, you get a lot of people talking about FIFA ratings, and I feel Football Manager is coming into that space a little bit where it is merging with football discourse as a whole. Is that something you've sort of seen over the last few years of your channel?
It's certainly getting more popular, yes. I think, although it was over a 2-year span rather than a 1-year span, I think there were about 20 million players across all platforms of Football Manager 24, which is incredible, huge number of people. And I think they said it was, I want to say it was about, don't fully quote me, it's either 5 or 7 million players played more than 5 hours, which apparently, according to Football Manager, they were saying that's like an industry standard. If you play more than 5 hours, then you're pretty much hooked into the game, and they see that as a success across the industry. So it has got quite a big player base. I think it's quite a cult following as well, to be fair. Yeah. I think it's one of those things like, if you're in it, you're in it. If you haven't heard of it before, you look at it and think, why am I just playing a spreadsheet simulator here? It's very much kind of like that, I think. But it is certainly growing in popularity of the game. And I think it is coming into the more mainstream culture a little bit more with some of the language that's used. I don't think it will overtake FIFA, or FC as it's called now, in the number of players and how much it's intertwined into actual football culture. I think it's a bit too complicated for that in a way. FIFA is a very easy thing to just pick up, sit down for half an hour and, play with your mates kind of thing. Football Manager is much more intensive kind of thought process and sit down and immerse yourself a bit differently. So I think it won't ever get to that level, but it's certainly getting to a much bigger level than it ever has done.
That's Exhibit A into the rise of popularity. What do you think it is about the game for yourself, and I guess for the millions of other people that play Football Manager? What makes Football Manager special, and what is it that pulls people in to play the game?
For me, I think it's the immersion, and it's the most sandbox game, or the most sandbox a football management or football game can be. You can literally do whatever you want kind of thing. I could join a team in the National League, let's say Boston United, right? And I could just say, right, from now on, I'm only going to sign under 21 players. And that's it. You just sign under 21s, you develop it. You just play it exactly how you want. You go the opposite and just say, I'm only going to sign over 30s. And it can work. You can make all these different things kind of work. And you get sucked into this kind of narrative of your world that you're in. And it's really fun when I talk to people about it and they're like, yeah, I was playing, and we lost 3-2 at the Emirates, and Arteta in his media interview afterwards, he started slagging me off a little bit. And then in real life, they start to think, I don't like Arteta at all. You can start to hear it in discourse, like, they just don't like Arteta because of how he reacted in Football Manager, for example, kind of thing. And it's so immersive like that. Sometimes a player might not turn up to training because they've been on a night out, for example. It says that in the game sometimes, and then suddenly in real life you start to feel a bit of animosity towards that player when they're on the team sheet. Like, don't start him, he's rubbish, he missed training several times last week. So it really builds you in. It's so immersive, and like you say, you can kind of do whatever you want as well. And there's such a powerful editor involved as well, so you can tweak things in the database before you start the game. You can get the in-game editor as well to make changes during the game as well, kind of thing. So you can really tweak things to your liking, and there's so many people out there that make so many databases too. So all of a sudden you can download a database for the Andorran League, and you can start managing Andorra and try and take Andorra from other clubs in Andorra like Santa Coloma, from minnows to European champions, for example. So it's the endless possibilities, and I think it's just so much fun.
I guess to sort of circle back to League One, you said in terms of Cardiff, or at the other end of the spectrum of Stevenage, in terms of an interesting club to do a save on. What sort of players stand out in League One? The players with maybe high potential, or ones to keep an eye on across the game?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I've had a quick look across one of the saves I've been playing at the moment. We haven't got the editors right now. They come out when the full release comes out. It's currently still like a beta testing phase for a couple of weeks. So I wouldn't be able to see like the exact like current ability, potential ability of players. But I was just looking through the stats, and in the 14 games played so far this season, for example, you've got Will Evans playing at Mansfield, who's the top scorer in the league right now with 8 goals in 14 games, which is not bad at all. You've got Josh Sheehan with the most assists at Bolton, with 5 assists in 12 games that he's played, 2 goals as well, so he's not doing too badly there at all. You've got Lasse Nordas taking the most shots as well. I can't say I watch enough of Luton to know that's realistic or not. Based on their current trajectory, I suspect it's probably not the most accurate thing in the world right now. So it does a very good job, I think, of getting a good general idea of most players. On paper, Luton should be very good this season. Obviously, in reality, they're not. And so this is kind of reflected in how good they should be on paper if all things are kind of equal, sort of thing. And that's not to say that like, in-game Luton would be, can't have a bad season. I mean, in this particular example, if I can find the league table again. Okay, it's a bad example because Luton are second in the table right now. But for example, Reading should have a pretty decent team this season, right? In my game here, they're down in 18th place. All things being equal, they should be right up there based on the quality of players they've got and how good they are reflected in Football Manager. They're right down in 18th place right now. Rotherham, I guess, to a similar extent, should be much higher than 22nd where they are in my current save here. So, yeah, it's not to say that they can't be bad, but generally speaking, I've kind of lost where I was going with that kind of point, to be fair.
You got so delved into the stats there, haven't you?
I did. Yeah. I did. I was really, really deep into that, to be fair. But yeah, I think it does a very good job reflecting how good players should be. Sometimes they are a little better than maybe they should be. Now, this often depends on where they've transferred from. So having spoken to the Lincoln researcher, for example, Ivan Varfolomeev, who signed from the Czech Republic, Slovan Liberec, over summer, the Slovan Liberec analyst, or the guy doing the Czech league over there, seems to rate him a lot higher than maybe we would rate the players at Lincoln. So for Lincoln, he's not the first choice centre midfielder. He's come off the bench quite a bit. But in game, he's actually rated as the highest midfielder at Lincoln City, for example. So that's where you can maybe find a little bit of differences, for example, of players that look very interesting. I think he's also got pretty decent potential too, from what I've heard. So again, it's looking at the younger players. If they're rated pretty highly at your club, that will reflect quite well in the game too.
You mentioned there, only a couple of players as well, but in terms of teams that are in certain positions in the league in your current save, what team have you currently got and how are they faring?
So I'm actually managing Middlesbrough in the Championship in this save in particular. And we're doing okay, I think. We're currently 7th in the table after 14 games played. We had a little bit of a cold patch in the last few games or so, a couple of draws in there. We were as high as 3rd at one point, but we've dropped off. It's really tight though, actually, because looking at the table here, Coventry are top as they are in real life. Actually, they're on 29 points. We're in 7th on 24 points. So it's only a 5-point gap after 14 games played, which is really quite narrow, to be fair. And it stays pretty tight actually down until 12th place. So Charlton 12th on 18 points, 11 points ahead of them. Coventry at the top of the table, right? So it's still early days, but we're getting close to that. We're a third of the way through the season pretty much, right? And or a quarter, whatever it is. And it's not bad at all. So it's looking quite tight. Oxford doing really well. They're up in 5th place right now. They're having a bit of a purple patch right now, 4 wins in their last 5, for example. So they're a team to kind of watch out for a little bit. Leicester were storming away at the top actually for a while, but they've not won in their last 4 games. They dropped off the top of the table behind Coventry. So it's going all right so far. I had to make a few tactical changes. I think we were a little bit loose in the transition. I think we had a few more players committed to the attack than we should have had. So we had to drop things back a little bit and just make sure we've got a few midfielders sitting a little deeper in the build-up and through into possession and as we get further up the pitch, just to make sure we're not caught in transition and on the counter kind of thing. So that helped a bit by changing that. We had a bit of a up and down start to the season with like win, loss, and then we went through a bit of a purple patch. And then the last few games, just a few draws creeping in like that to drop us out the playoff places. So yeah, you can already see like you get so into it, like suddenly analysing everything. And we had a guy called Alan Brown who's on loan at the club at the moment, but in the first friendly for me, he just did the most ridiculous thing ever. He seemed to just give the ball away to the opposition. It was Sligo Rovers in a friendly. He just gave the ball away and they scored on the break. And I was like, well, you're not playing for me then. So Alan Brown's not even kicked a ball this season for me. He's probably quite good, but I don't want to know him. So, he's out of the team. He's been frozen out.
It's fascinating, really. You're speaking like a manager in a press conference there. And I find it so interesting how it is that sort of game, isn't it? You get so into it when you're playing it. It would be rude, really, not to talk about Lincoln City having you on the podcast. We're recording this before the Bradford game, but you're up there in the playoff places at time of recording, and it's been a great start to the season for you, hasn't it?
It's been really good. I came into the season not really expecting much, if I'm honest with you. I felt we had a bit of a lackluster summer. Obviously, we'd lost key players in Ethan Arahan, we'd lost Porty O'Connor, Sean Rowan, and then, of course, Makama leaving on the opening day of the season. I was like, okay. We may have got a lot of money into the club, which is fantastic. That's kind of the aim here, but I don't think it's been properly reinvested just yet. I think time's going to tell me it may be January, bringing a few kids to sort of develop again. But this season's not going to be our season. And it was before we even signed as well, like Adam Reach for left back. We only had we didn't have a proper left back really. Riley Towler can play left back and has been very effective there, but he's not an out and out left back. He's more of a left centre back kind of thing. So I was thinking we had a few holes in the squad, thinking we had to scramble for a mid-table finish, really. I didn't think we were going to be challenging the playoffs at all. But the way we've started the season, obviously brought in a few people towards deadline day on loan and permanence. Varfola may have joining for a club record fee as well. It's really exciting. I'm really excited to see what he can do. He's much more of the unknown quantity, given that he's not played in England before. And so he seems quite exciting and potentially has got quite a big potential ahead of him. And I expect that he will slowly across the season start to come into that midfield. But currently that is being dominated by McGrandles and Bayliss. They are really solid. They've both had really good starts to the campaign and they're both very much in form constantly. So it'd be very difficult to drop one of them for Varfola Mayev. I suspect he's probably more in the McGrandles mould. I think Bayliss is much more playmaker, creative, wants to get a bit further forward. Varfola Mayev seems to be a bit more of the Ethan Rahan type. I guess he was meant to be a bit of a replacement, I guess, long-term wise. I guess if McGrandles, he's getting towards 30 now, I believe. So maybe they're thinking, okay, once he crosses 30, I'm going to drop some minutes a little bit. Varfola Mayev comes through a little bit. But he's exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. And so, yeah, it's been really fun to watch the start of the season. We've actually been a really good team. A lot of the issues, I think, in previous seasons were not being able to create enough chances. And we were very good at taking the chances when they did come around. The last few games or so for Lincoln, actually, it's been a case of we're creating so many chances, but cannot put the ball in the back of a net. We should have done it 4 or 5 times in the first half against Stevenage, but we didn't. In the game against, who did we play beforehand at home? That's really escaping me now. I missed the game. Exeter, that was the one. I missed it. I wasn't there for that game, but it seems like we had
another 1-0 defeat. Yeah.
A 1-0 defeat, yes. We had 100 chances, hit the post and couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. It seemed similar at Leyton Orient at the weekend as well. Lots of chances, couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. So that's obviously something they're working, I'm sure. But for now, I'm very happy that we are creating lots of chances. I'd rather us create 10 chances and miss them all than create 0 chances and just score a lucky goal on the break kind of thing. Fundamentally, it seems like we are good at attacking and creating chances. So I'm sure the goals will come. It's just a little bit of a rough patch for the strikers. But it's been fun this start of the season. And I'm starting to get excited.
Yeah, as it should.
Sorry, Seb, just to pick up on one of those threads in terms of Conor McGrandles, I think if you'd have told me last season that one of the reasons to postpone a game during the international break was the concern that Conor McGrandles might not be available to play, that would have completely blown my mind. And now he's a really important cog in that machine.
Yeah, you'd argue that he's one of the first names on the team sheet now. Like, he's been so consistent at the start of the season, especially because last season he was getting quite a bit of stick from fans throughout the season for not being consistent and maybe not being at the top of his game. So perhaps they've tweaked things in the off-season tactically, which really suits him a lot better. But he certainly seems like the Conor McGrandles at his very best right now.
Yeah, and just to back on to what we said earlier in terms of you getting excited, rightly so. 7 wins from 13 so far this season, only 3 defeats amongst all that. You mentioned a couple of players, McGrandles as well. Who stood out for you for Lincoln who's been a star player from your point of view for Lincoln in their start so far this season?
I think if we work from the back forwards, in the back line, certainly Sonny Bradley has come in and been arguably to some people more than a replacement for Paudie O'Connor, like a better player than Paudie O'Connor. Paudie is one of the best players defensively at this level. And, obviously in the sort of peak of his career, is wanting a big move to get much bigger wages somewhere else, and Reading can provide that. So I don't think anyone begrudges him a move away from the club. I was desperate for him to stay, but, in comes Sonny Bradley, who I was hesitant about to start off with, just thinking, okay, the guy is, getting game time on loan at Wickham, but maybe not the ideal candidate at his parent club at the time kind of thing. He's on the back end of his career, 33. Maybe things are going to drop off a little bit if it's just kind of like a last season for him. But no, he's playing like a guy 5 years younger kind of thing. You wouldn't think he's a guy who's on the tail end of his career at all. He's an absolute machine for us. So he's come in. I've been really impressed with him, to be fair. I think he's marshalling that back line really well. I think, like we said, in midfield, we've spoken about the Grandals already, so we won't touch him too much again, but he's been solid. Bayliss has come in and has been, I think, the best Bayliss we've ever seen in a Lincoln shirt at the moment. He's been really, really solid. Gives you a solid 7 out of 10 every week kind of thing. And has got a cracking set piece on him too, which is fantastic. And then going forwards, I think they've changed things around quite a bit, and they're not afraid to put Rico on the left or the right and put Street on the other side. I mean, Ben House has been really good this season as well. He sort of came in on the left wing, I think, when Rico was injured or ill for a little bit, and played really well. And so he's been in that team constantly and causing issues for other players wanting to get in because he's been playing so well. So Ben House has certainly made a mark this season, has been rewarded with a contract extension as well because of that. I think Rob Street coming in, people were expecting quite a lot out of him, particularly after how well he did at Doncaster last season on loan there. I think probably being played out of position a little bit on the right wing. I think he would probably prefer to be playing up front. And I'm sure the club have kind of said going forwards, he will kind of be the number 9. But when you've got James Collins in the team, he's always going to be starting at the moment, even at 33, 34 he is now. Although he hasn't played a full 90 minutes this season yet. So obviously is on that sort of tail end now and is coming off after 60 minutes or so to be replaced by whoever is coming on the pitch at that point. Draper has had a step up this season in that sort of number 10 role, where he's probably not been, or we've not been used to seeing him playing that sort of number 10 role as Lincoln fans, but he's come in and sort of sat in that number 10 role and done really well, quite effective there behind the striker. And I think even Rico Hackett as well has shown himself to be a really consistent performer again. I feel like I've named most of starting 11 there, to be fair, but they've all been really quite good this season.
Been, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And they're keeping other players out of the team, like Eric Green can't really get a look in the team. Oscar Thorne, who signed, looks very direct, looks really quite exciting to watch, but he can't get in the team either on the grounds that everyone else is just playing at such a high level at the moment. So yeah, it's quite tricky for those guys who are probably watching thinking, how on earth am I going to get into this team? If everyone's playing well week in, week out, then it's going to be so difficult. But, that's the competition you want as a fan. I want my players to be keeping everyone else out of the team kind of thing because they're playing so well. I don't want to have to think every week, we need to change Hackett for Ring this week. And then next week, think, I need to put Hackett back in instead of Ring. So it's been really fun. And hopefully we can sustain this level of consistency.
And a sad reminder of how limited our attacking options are at Doncaster with Rob Street back to Lincoln after his loan spell last season as well. One final question for you, Tom. I feel like we have to ask you how you think Lincoln are going to do come the end of the season. Is this going to remain on course, do you think, or are they going to start to slip towards maybe where we thought they were going to be at the start of the season? How far can this go?
In life, I'm a very glass half full kind of person, I think. When it comes to supporting Lincoln City, I'm a glass half empty kind of guy, if I'm honest with you. There's too many years of disappointment, especially through the National League years, where it was better to be like that, really. So I generally go into seasons feeling pretty uninspired or underwhelmed a little bit, and then slowly get excited. And the same thing happened last season. I was like a little bit underwhelmed. And then we had a great start to the season, and it all kind of crumbled for like 4 months through like Christmas and kind of stuff. And then we eventually came back to be a few points off the playoffs. But it was a rough sort of period through winter. That's going to be the key point for me, whether Lincoln can maintain the level of consistency they've had in the early stages of this season. I'm sure I saw a stat now, and this was a couple of games ago now, but I think it's before the Stevenage game, actually, where statistically, based on the number of points each team has when they played the other team, Stevenage had the easiest start to the season. Lincoln had the third easiest start. So I suspect at some point in the next few weeks, as we start to play with teams who are actually up there and pretty good, that we will start to drop a few points and maybe drop out the playoffs a little bit. I expect Lincoln this season to sort of finish kind of mid-table. That's where I see the Imps really, and the level of the squad on paper as how it should be. But Lincoln over the last few seasons have had a habit of punching above their weight. They make a big song and dance about how they're got one of the smallest budgets in the league, but they always outperform it massively. It's not really something you want to hear as a fan, if I'm honest with you, because I'd much rather than just put the money in and get promoted kind of thing. It doesn't always work out like that kind of thing, but I understand the point of it. They're trying to make look, we're doing really well for the money we've got, and we're overperforming what we should be doing. So Lincoln have made a habit out of that. Developing young players quite well. So I expect us to sort of be in that sort of top half of the table, just outside the playoffs by the end of the season. I think it will all balance out to that, I suspect.
Yeah, one of the league's overachievers for sure. Thanks for joining us, Tom. It's been great to talk something a bit different as well with Football Manager. Before we do let you go, any places that our viewers, our listeners can find you before we go?
Yeah, YouTube is the main platform. Just type Tom FM into YouTube and it should be straight there.
Amazing. Thanks everyone for listening, for watching, and thanks to Seb as well for joining. Normal service will resume next week with League One action back, and it's a derby between myself and Seb with Barnsley against Doncaster. So one of us will be happy and one of us will be really sad, I'm sure, next weekend. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time here on the League One Lowdown.